Hey everybody, it's Peter and we are in my echoey office doing a little bit different video than I normally do today because I want to give you some information on the Can-Am Pulse and the Can-Am Origin, the electric motorcycles from Can-Am. So a couple days ago I filmed a video and we talked about, I talked with Extreme Torque Motorsports, who will be a dealer here in New Brunswick carrying those vehicles. And we talked about the kinds of things that we know and don't know, and we said we would do a follow-up video. So this is the follow-up video. I just finished filming a video on the Canyon with some questions and some things that we'll have to find out there. And if you're interested in these bikes or just interested in following them, or if you have specific questions you want to know about them, please feel free to let me know in the comments. And if you just kind of are interested but don't really know what to write or say, do me a favor, leave a positive comment, drop a like on the video, and if you want to know more, hit the subscribe button. All of those things are going to kind of give me a little more clout with making sure that we get as much access as we can to everything we can as far as these bikes. Extreme Torque Motorsports has been amazing with me. They've always let me film anything there. They've always given me full access to say anything I want. I'm kind of a fan of these. They're not perfect. They're not for everyone. So that's what we're going to talk about in this video. And I think there's going to be a lot of misinformation. So really quickly, I've been doing this channel for a couple years now, involved with power sports. I've obviously been involved with power sports a good portion of my life. I also, in a previous career, was considered an expert, even an expert by manufacturers, on electric vehicles. So I did that for many years. And I think I'm kind of the perfect person to follow these and understand them. I think the reviews you're gonna see are from motorcycle people who don't understand EVs and EV people who probably don't understand motorcycles. And I think I might be the right person to communicate what these are. So first of all, I'm excited by these. There are other EVs from major manufacturers, other EV motorcycles from major manufacturers that are not great. They're not good. They're not something I would even consider buying. These are something I would consider buying, but they're going to have limitations. Range is going to be the big one. So let's just quickly talk about that. Can-Am Pulse, road bike. Can-Am Origin, dual sport bike, not an adventure bike. So the Pulse, the city bike, let's just start right there. They're claiming 160 kilometers of range. Range on any electric vehicle is often stated in pretty optimistic terms. That's not the case with every manufacturer. Some people state it and you can actually exceed it, but they can be optimistic. I think on a motorcycle it's going to be harder because range very much depends on aerodynamics, and Can-Am has sort of hedged their bets here. When you read the 160 kilometer range, they are very clearly listing that as city range. City range is slower speed that eliminates some of that aerodynamic drag you're going to have. That's an important piece. Do they go highway speeds? They do, which I shouldn't have to mention in a motorcycle video, but there are other EV motorcycles that do not. And that's just kind of eliminates them for most people. So I think Can-Am's kind of rubbing it in when they talk about the 0 to 100 kilometers an hour. I'm using the Canadian site. They have 0 to 60 times as well. 0 to 100 kilometers an hour in 3.8 seconds. So incredibly quick for any vehicle, great for a motorcycle even. 3.8 seconds, 0 to 100 kilometers an hour, very good. So you're gonna have speed, you're gonna have highway capable speeds, and you're gonna have range of less than 160 kilometers for most of our riding. Now, one key piece to this is they are gonna be level 2 chargeable. So level 2 chargeable is what we call destination charging in the EV world. It's what most people install in their garages. It's what you see outside hockey arenas or at campgrounds, various places. There's a level 2 charger. So for a car, it could take 8, 10, 12 hours to charge. It can take 6 hours on some cars. But on a motorcycle, the 20 to 80%, which is a lot of times how we talk about charging, is actually 50 minutes. So that's pretty good. The big benefit to level 2 charging is they are often incredibly cheap and very often free. And there are apps that you can use to find level 2 charging, and let me tell you, they are everywhere, level 2 charges. So even if you were gonna drive just 100 kilometers and stop at a destination and add a little bit more on and go from there. Yes, it's a 50-minute stop. It's not convenient, but it's doable on these motorcycles to actually travel. So would I like to see more range? Yes, absolutely. But these are the kinds of things where you could head down 100 kilometers, do your tour, stop, tour a town, charge it up for less than an hour, and then head back as well and make it home. And a lot of time people forget that with an EV, like for instance, my Tesla, it takes, you know, quite a while to charge on a supercharger. But for instance, I did a 5-hour drive in it and it needed a 12-minute stop and a 5-minute stop. And by the time we were at that 12-minute stop where my kids and wife went to the bathroom and got a coffee, I didn't need that 5-minute stop anymore. So just because it's maybe an hour plus charging from certain area to certain area, a lot of time you only need to top up enough to get to the next charger. So sometimes you'll stop, drive 80 kilometers, you'll stop for 20 minutes, you drive another 80 kilometers, you stop for 15 minutes, you drive another 15 kilometers, you stop for 20 minutes. So on a motorcycle, while you can't tour on them the same way you would on a regular motorcycle, to zip from town to town, especially in country roads, absolutely possible on this, and that makes it pretty intriguing to me. It is a little expensive. We'll talk about pricing in a second, but they're interesting. So let's talk about a couple quick things we want to find out about them. I want to find out how many amps it uses on a level 2 charger, because various cars are various amperages. It tells us a lot about charging. There are reasons that the Origin, which is the off-roadish style, I'm going to call it a dual sport bike, Can-Am calls it a dual sport bike, some people are going to want to call it the adventure bike. There are reasons that the Origin, the dual sport bike, is more expensive than the Pulse outside of just the dirt tires. So let's talk about some of the differences there. First of all, they each have a glove box. It's small, it's just a glove box. It's 1.7 liters with a USB port on the Pulse, the road bike. It is 0.7 liters on the Origin. So different bodywork, different styling, it's gonna have a little different space in there. The other thing is the Pulse, the road bike, has a KYB suspension fork. Front suspension fork, which is KYB. The Origin, they talk about dual, so front and rear KYB, and adjustable travel in the rear suspension. So a little different rear suspension, but also that upgraded rear suspension. And then there's 4 different drive modes, which are normal, eco, rain, and sport plus in the Pulse. And then you add on 2 off-road modes in the Origin. So 6 drive modes for the off-road, 2 drive modes for the Pulse, a little bit different in there. Aerodynamics and probably just wheel choices are going to be the difference in range, because the batteries are the same size, motors are the same. So 160 kilometers of city range, 145 kilometers of city range, there's your 15 kilometer difference there. Likely due to tires, and keep in mind it's not just tires, it's tire sizes. You have a 21 and an 18, which is what you want to see on a true off-road bike. That's what you have on the Origin, and probably 2 17s on the Pulse. And there's also a difference in the 0-60 time. I think it may have to do with those tires as well. 3.8 0 to 100 kilometers an hour and 4.3 0 to 100 kilometers an hour. So I don't think there's a difference in the motor or gearing and that kind of thing. I think it's probably just tire difference, and the tire tread could have a difference with the speed and the efficiency overall. So those are what I'm seeing there. There are a lot of accessories for these bikes. One slight disappointment for some people is these are single seat motorcycles from the factory. They're going to need an accessory, and it's an available Can-Am accessory, to have the second, like the passenger seat and the foot pegs for that. So keep in mind, you do have to pay to add that onto there. The other thing I think you should pay for is a level 1 charger, which basically means it plugs into a regular outlet just like your cell phone. That's in the $300+ range in Canada to get the level 1 charger. Now you don't need that if you have a level 2 charger in your house, but if you want to just plug it in the wall, which makes perfect sense for a motorcycle, you know, as it sits overnight, it'll charge in the wall. But it's a few $100s, and it is nice to have that because, you know, you have that ability to charge literally at any plug. So it's just interesting that they don't sell it with the bike. I get why, because it's level 2 capable. So at a place like my place where I have a couple electric vehicles in my garage, it will just plug into a faster charger, which is nice. The other thing I want to find out is the software set up to charge to 80%? So you'll notice if you have a Tesla and many other electric vehicles, they recommend only charging it to 80% for your daily use and 100% for a trip. In other words, you don't want to leave it stored at 100%. So I would like to see software towards that. It may or may not have that. It's not the end of the world if it doesn't have it, but and they may have software in there to protect it in its own way. But that's a traditional thing you see in an electric vehicle. One thing I do like about the software though is you have Apple CarPlay. Now a lot of people are going to ask, why don't I have Android Auto? I don't know. I'm assuming there's a licensing agreement that hasn't been set up with them yet. but you have Apple CarPlay. One of the reasons Apple CarPlay is extremely handy on an electric motorcycle with limited range is, like I mentioned, all those apps that show you where those chargers are, some of them have CarPlay apps, and at the very least, you can throw it into a navigation system on Google Maps or Apple Maps, which are two of the most up-to-date, accurate maps anywhere in the world. They're good with showing traffic and everything else as well. And when you have limited range, when you're driving this thing down to your last 10 kilometers, you don't want to take a 9-kilometer detour anywhere or a wrong turn or something like that. So not only does it have great maps in this nice big screen, you also have the ability to direct it to the charger that you want to go to allow you to go to charge station to charge station. So where do these bikes fit in? They are around town bikes. I know some people want the Origin in particular to be an adventure bike. The range isn't going to allow you to take adventures in the traditional sense, although the adventurous among us, me included, would be happy to try a trip on this. I'm very familiar and comfortable with electric vehicles, and Can-Am, if you're watching, love to try the Origin, take it for some trips to prove it can be done. What you will find though is they both have the ability to take adventure style luggage. You can get soft bags for the side from Can-Am, you can get a top box on the back from Can-Am, and both of those will make both of them look sort of like adventure style bikes. What's cool about that is because these are around town bikes and they are going to be incredibly cheap to run, you can take these and do your daily errands with them. You can sit there and get your groceries with them. You can go to the Walmart. You can go around and do the various things you need to do because you've got that luggage. So even if you're not using it as adventure luggage, it's going to be an amazing second vehicle to have around in town for your everyday kind of running around. And you're going to have that lockable storage on the top box. You're going to have expandable storage on the side bags, which you can use on an adventure if you want. Again, planning those charge stops, but you can actually use that for around town stuff. So the problem with it is pricing. Pricing of electric motorcycles is high. I do think they are extremely fair for electric motorcycles that are out there. I think the capability's there. There's some unique technology in there. What I really like is they have a motor embedded into the swing arm with an enclosed chain, which is just part of their snowmobile technology, but that means I think it's 15,000 kilometers you can go without any chain maintenance. So we know on an electric vehicle, you don't have oil changes and much reduced maintenance that way. We know this has regenerative braking of sorts, and that's gonna save your brakes from needing extra work. And we know that that chain maintenance is drastically reduced, which is another thing that's nice to have on an adventure bike and other bikes. And just if you go in poor weather, you don't have to worry about it. It's all a sealed system that sort of takes care of its own oiling and that kind of thing. So every 15,000 kilometers on a bike that's going to do a lot of short range means you're not oiling that chain for a couple of years for a lot of people, depending on how much you're going to ride that thing. And really it's just, it's sealed in there. You just forget about it. So, and there are some suspension benefits to having it in there. We can talk about that in a different video as well. But there is some unique technology, both in the dash, in the bikes itself. And again, with limited range, they are going to be more expensive motorcycles. They're not a direct one-to-one competitor. Oh, I can get a round town bike for a lot cheaper if it's gas. 100%. You're not going to be paying off the savings of this electric bike compared to a gas bike with just the fuel savings and maintenance savings. However, they're very compelling electric bikes. So I'm hoping to spend a whole bunch of time with it. If you have more questions, there's a lot of EV related questions that I have to figure out, and also just generally what are these things like? I'd like to spend some time with them. That's what we'll be doing on this channel. So thanks for making it this far in the video. Like I said, do the YouTube-y things that you have to help this video get some spread. That means liking, subscribing, leaving a comment, that kind of thing. And I'll keep coming back. I promise you that nobody's gonna come back to these bikes more than I will, so I will get the answers that we need, and hopefully that's a reason to subscribe. Thanks everybody for watching. We'll talk to you in the next one.